terms of posture about, sitting, standing.
How does that do those things?
Just curious.
No.
No. Okay. All right. Now, the way you learn in a lesson is on two levels. I'm going to explain the basic principles of the Alexander technique to you, which are principles of efficient use of the body in daily activities as Alexander developed them, so that you learn on the comprehension level. You begin to understand why certain ways of balancing the head on the neck or aligning the spine or balancing the shoulders are better than other ways of doing those things. So there's an comprehension aspect in learning the technique. What also happens in the lesson, which is the most important, is that while you're thinking some basic instructions that Alexander developed that describe this better use, I use my hands very gently on your body to help you carry them out. And that's learning that happens on the kinesthetic level, on the muscle sense level. It's like the difference between reading how to ride a bike and actually getting on it and feeling in your own body what has to happen in terms of equilibrium in order to be able to ride the bike. So that an Alexander teacher, we all use our hands as a most important teaching tool. Now, Alexander developed 4 basic concepts of good use that have to do with your postural self, how your head balances on your neck and your shoulder girdle balances and so forth. He called these orders or directions. And I'm going to teach you those. And while you're thinking them, I'm going to say them out loud. And while you're thinking them silently to yourself, as I say them, I will be guiding you into carrying them out. Okay, and I'm going to throw a lot of information at you today. You let it go in one ear and out the other. Okay, this is a learning process, and we're dealing with a part of yourself that's quite automatic. You're not that aware of how you perform. Yeah, so it'll, part of it may feel a little bit weird. All right, one of the most important concepts in the technique is that as we move, as we sit and stand and so forth, we want to think of the spine as lengthening in activity rather than compressing. So when you say you sit at the piano slumped over and you get tight here, that's a very good example of the spine compressing. However, we don't start with an awareness of the spine. We start with what's happening with the head and neck. The head is quite heavy and it sits on top of the spine. So the way it's poised influences the spine in terms of whether the spine compresses or lengthens. And what we call the head direction, the head instruction, is the most complicated. I'm going to, explain it to you, and if you don't get it right away, that's fine. It takes many years, as everybody will say, to really understand head direction. Okay. Now, Alexander noticed in himself and other people, I want you to put your hand around the back of your neck so that your little finger is just gently underneath the back of your head. The most common misuse of head-neck poise is to tighten the muscles that are under your hands so that your head is pulled back and down. And just do that motion a little bit. Alexander described that as the head being pulled back and down. And that when you slump at the piano, that's the balance or the lack of efficient poise that happens in that area. And when you sat down just now and stood up, every time you did, your head went back and down on your neck. Yeah. Now take your hand down. To eliminate that or reduce it as a postural response, Alexander developed the concept of releasing the neck muscles, particularly the ones back here, so that instead of your head being pulled back and down this way, you're going to think of allowing it to release forward of the neck and up. So the first instruction is neck free, release the neck muscles to allow the head to balance forward up. Now the word forward is very important in the technique, but it's the most confusing because we don't mean forward in space. What we mean is that we don't want the head in relation to the neck to be pulled back. And when it goes back, it's a rotation. So the correction would be a slight rotation forward if indeed you're back this way. So when you're sitting at the piano or you're talking on the phone, say, gee, is my head back and down? And if it is, you pause a minute and not change anything, and then just think to yourself, okay, I have a choice. I can release into forward, which is that very delicate correction of a backward rotation. And as the head releases into the forward rotation, it then will tend to ease up off the neck and that's the up. And in turn, what will happen is that your spine will be encouraged to lengthen. So we sort of come around to the spine, which we started with. Okay. So you're going to think now of your neck being free so that your head is balanced forward of the neck and up, and you're just following my hands here. That's it. And as your head releases up off your neck, you're going to add the instruction of allowing your torso, you're not going to sit down yet, allowing your torso to release into length, following that up direction. Now, when you go into a slump, when you anticipate sitting down, what happens is this. So you're going to follow my hands. Kevin, just think of releasing up. That's it, that's it, that's it. There you go. Your head leading up and the torso following. Now, if you look in the mirror, you see the chair is still there. And all I want you to do now, and I say all I want you to do is misleading because it's not that easy, you're just going to let your knees bend to sit down with the thought of letting your head lead up. That's it, and you're on down. Okay. What we did that time was eliminate some of the postural habits that you have that tend to compress the spine. And as you sit here, can you feel the tendency to go into this? Yeah, like a slump. Okay, so you say, all right, I'm going to release my neck and let the head lead up. That's it. Let the torso lengthen and widen and follow the head direction up. Now, I just used the phrase let your torso lengthen and widen, which is the second instruction. That when we slump, we are shortening the overall length of the torso. And if you round your shoulders, you're narrowing here. Since the torso is three-dimensional, we use the concept of width here. But if you sit up too straight, go ahead and sit up too straight and arch your back. We also call that narrowing. So you want to allow, that's it, you want to allow your torso to be suspended between length and width. So it has its normal inner space, actually. The head leading up and the torso following. Okay. Now, without too much thinking about how you're going to stand up, because you do know how to, someone said, come on over here, Kevin, you can stand up, where I want you to stay with those two basic instructions. The neck releasing, the head balancing forward of the neck and up, the torso lengthening and widening. And all you need to do to stand up is lean forward enough till you're over your feet comfortably, and then you can unfold. And what we don't need to stand up is bending here or doing this. So you don't need any of that, and you're just going to think of letting the head lead up and the torso follow. That's it. Follow your head right. Very nice. Okay. And now I want you to look in the mirror at yourself. That's it. Can you see the difference in terms of length in the torso? Yeah.
Symmetrical.
It's what?
Looks symmetrical.
Looks symmetrical? Okay. So neck free, head forward and up, torso lengthening and widening. And just let your legs fold, sit down, hips back, that's it. That's right. Okay, I would like the little stool if it's around here. And you're just going to sit here for a minute. Thank you. Now I want to talk about your hip joints. The hip joints are way down here. Feel where those hip bones are, Kevin. And then if you point your fingers a little down and in, that's where the hip joints are. And that's where the legs join the torso. And what happens when people sit down, stand up, and bend over is, they do move on the hip joints, but they also misuse a flexibility of the spine. The spine is a curved, flexible structure. There's nothing wrong with using its flexibility in sports and dancing and exercises, but in everyday activities, sitting at the keyboard this way and so forth, it's gradually over the years not very good for your back. So all you really need to do to sit down and stand up is to move forward from the hip joints. So being free in those hip joints is another Alexander concept, because that will encourage you to release in those joints. So the instruction for the legs is to think of releasing in the hip joints so that your legs can release away from the pelvis. And it doesn't matter what direction away, any position you want your legs in. It's just that what you don't want is for the strong muscles that go across the hip joint to be held tight, because that will interfere with moving here freely, and you'll start to misuse this area. So, as you sit, can you look in the mirror? You're beginning to go into a slump a little bit. So the first thing you're going to do is say you're not going to change it. Otherwise, you'll just go right into a muscular changing. But rather to release back here so that your head balances forward of the neck and up. That's it. And then you allow, follow my hands, the torso to lengthen. Okay, now without getting up, I want you still to use the mirror and just lean slightly forward as though you were going to get up. Okay, now release a little bit more in the back. That's it. Okay, what you just corrected was the wrong back and down, and you correct it by releasing it forward and up. And that in turn has an influence on the spine and encourages the spine to lengthen. Okay, so your head leading up, the torso following, your legs releasing away from the pelvis, and I'm going to guide you forward over your feet to stand up. And you're going to say, no, you're not going to get up. And the reason I say you're going to get up and then I say, no, you're not going to get up, reflects a very important aspect of this technique, and that's what we call inhibition. That when we go to make a familiar motion, like standing up, the body instantly goes into the old way that it's used to doing that particular activity. Alexander discovered that in order to change the way his body was organized in movement, he had to first say, I'm not going to do the familiar movement. Instead, I'm just going to stay here and reorganize my body in terms of the orders of the directions. So you're not going to get up. Instead, you're going to think of your neck releasing, the head leading up, the torso following. And incidentally, maybe you'll swing forward and stand up. Right. And here you are lengthening up, looking straight ahead, being aware of your whole torso releasing up off your legs. And you can allow, you have the choice of allowing that lengthening to continue as you let your knees bend to sit down. Good. And I'm going to get you right up again. And I'm going to have you sit down again, lengthening up and come on up once more. Okay. Now you might have been aware of your legs working more. I don't know if you were, but as you sat.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a different balance of the body, a different poise of the body, and the legs are actually being used more efficiently, and people tend to feel the work. You know, they work also if you slump. They have to. They're what gets you up and down. But it is a different kinesthetic experience. All right, now, I want you to just work a little concepts as you walk. By the way, one aspect of this technique that is a little bit hard for people to grasp onto in the beginning is that the technique doesn't so much tell you what to do. It basically tells you what not to do. And instead, but it isn't all negative. It isn't just doubt. Into an improved use through these particular instructions. So the instruction to release the neck to let the head balance forward and up means you don't need to pull it back and down, so you're going to stop the pulling back and down, but you don't put it forward enough. You can't. That just gives you a different type of wrong. It's just more tension. You allow the head to release forward and up, and you allow your torso to release and to lengthen with, because interfering with its normal tendencies to do that. So, having had you do all this still work, I'm going to have you walk now. And I want you to walk at a normal tempo. And as you walk, you're going to just think of the lengthening in the torso being initiated by the thought of your head leading up. Okay, and go ahead and walk. I'm going to follow you. That's it, and walk a little bit faster. So you're thinking of your head leading up, the torso following. That's it. Neck freeing it forward and up, torso lengthening and widening. Your legs swinging freely, forward from the hip joints. That's right. Okay, let's go back to the chair. One image I want to give you of yourself, if I stop some person on the street and I say, I want you to imagine that you're divided into upper and lower halves. And I'll say, have you done that? Say yes. And I'll say, where's the division? Most people will put the division at the waist level. However, skeletally, structurally, the separation is at the hip joints. If the hip joints are ball and socket joints, designed for, obviously, for mobility, and everything above the hip joints should be directed towards the head, and the legs should be thought of as being able to release freely as they move away from the pelvis, so that we have a conceptual separation here. If we walked on all fours, it would be easier to see where our hip joints are. But elegant human beings stand upright, and as we look at ourselves, we can't actually tell where the hip joints are. And because the waist area is flexible, we tend to make a hinge of the waist area. And it's not a hinge, it is flexible, but it isn't designed as a hinge at all. So, let's walk again with this concept that as you're walking, you're thinking of being divided into upper and lower halves, and everything above the hip joints goes up following your head, and you're going to think of front length a little bit more. That's it, your head leading up. Good. Okay, so as you walk down the street, this is something that you can work with. All right, now, any questions so far? No? Okay, what I want to do now is get you on the table. So let's move the table. Kathy, what would be the...
Just in the middle.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm not sure. All right, I want you to take your sneakers off. Okay, let's stop a minute. I'm going to stop you right here. And just stay where you are, Kevin. And get a sense. Should we wait? Or are you
Oh,
rolling?
no, go ahead.
Okay. And just get a sense of what's happening in terms of, muscle tension and alignment of your head and spine and so forth, as you reach forward to do something that you do a lot, I'm sure. Okay, come on up to sitting all the way upright, and let's do this again. So you're going to think of your head leading up and the torso following. And this time, as you go forward to reach your shoes, instead of thinking of a trajectory that takes you down this way and compresses the spine, I want you to think of your spine lengthening. So, you look down at your sneakers, which is what you normally do, and go ahead and move forward. That's it. That's right. Okay. Now, that's much better. So that you can go forward as much as you like. All right, come on up again. But do the wrong one now. Go into a slump. That's it. That's it. And you can see can you feel the difference of what happens here? The neck is made up of very delicate vertebrae, and they are very easily compressed. The muscles in the back of the neck are very strong, and the head is heavy. So, you're going to think, okay, just because I'm taking my sneakers off, I don't need to do that to this part of me, so I have a choice. That's it, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. That's right. Okay, now, eventually you'll take your sneakers off.
Okay.
Right. All right, now, I want you to lie on the table with your head at this end, and we're going to put some on your back, and we're going to put some books under your head. And I'll let explain why. Okay. Now, if I take the books away, can you feel how your head is tilted back? Okay, so that what we do on the table, we have someone on the table, is we put books under the head so that the head is in line with the rest of the body, that the neck is in line with the rest of the spine, so that the head isn't going back this way. And I think I may need some more books up there. Now your job, Kevin, on the table is a very nice one. I do all the work, okay? However, eyes open. You're not allowed to go to sleep. The purpose of the table work, well, it has many things that it does, but one of the main purposes is to give you a chance to just practice talking to your body silently, to very casually, very easily thinking the basic Alexander instructions. So I'm going to again say them out loud. And as you think them to yourself, I want you to realize that you don't have to make any effort, literally any effort at all, to carry them out. Remember, they are primarily telling you what not to do and guiding your body into a new use through a concept rather than through the muscles like hold your stomach in and shoulders back and that sort of stuff. They're not doing that at all. And the reason I want your eyes open, and I say think very easily, is that with the technique, one of the basic skills that comes along automatically with the number of lessons is your ability to have what I call a dual awareness. Being aware of how your body is being used in terms of efficiency and so forth, and still performing, playing ball, whatever, still driving a car, whatever your particular activity at the moment is. There are many ways of thinking to the body. There's nothing wrong with shutting your eyes and excluding the outside world and really going in for meditation or whatever. That's one use. The Alexander use is eyes open, walking down the street, driving your car in crazy traffic, and still saying, all right, I don't need to release, I don't need to tighten in my neck, I can release in the neck and I can release in my shoulders and so forth. So be aware of the room and our charismatic ceiling and all those people looking at you. And you're going to just think of releasing your neck. And again, my hands convey the message of the Alexander instructions. This is your jaw, which is part of your head. And the jaw, therefore, should not be jammed into the neck, and it shouldn't be jammed into the head also. So you want to be free up in this area. And the spine goes way up high and back. Many people don't realize that the top of the spine is about the level of the roof of your mouth. So you're going to think of releasing way up high there. And the neck muscles start above that on the head. So your neck free, head leading forward of the neck and out, and we use the word out instead of up when you're lying down. And you're just going to add the thought of allowing your torso to release into length and width. Doing nothing about it, but just sending those instructions. Some people wonder whether just thinking to the body has an effect, and we know it does. You as a performer probably know that what goes on in here has a lot to do with the expertise or the pitch, etc. of your performance. Right. And we do have very efficient, fast-sending nerve fibers that go from the conscious brain to our skeletal muscles. So we don't have to think hard to get a message through. Okay, now I want to work with the leg direction.